Getting a team to take initiative and solve problems can be tough, and you often worry about taking on more team members because of the extra burden it's going to put you under as a business owner. Tune into today's podcast. We're going to talk about a simple process for building a motivated team that shows initiative. We tell stories here, and I am the master storyteller.
Right, whatever.
Yep. But I know you're like amping to tell a story, so go, man.
All right. Anyway, so the story I was going to tell that I think is pretty apt for this situation is actually about my son George. So if you've been listening before, you may have heard this, but basically,
he's a fine young man too.
Fine young man, and it's actually about when we had to teach him how to wipe his own butt. So if you are a parent, you've probably done this as well, and if you haven't, then good luck. It's coming up.
Yeah.
But in this case, it was basically about the whole process of teaching him, and what we found is that at the start, he'd do the old, go in, do his business, and he'd come out and he'd have had 1 or 2 wipes, and he'd always come out and ask us to check, which basically meant I've had 1 or 2 wipes and I want you to finish it for me. And what we found is that just carried on, tried, teaching him better and showing him some different stuff and blah, blah, blah. But
so you've got techniques for this stuff.
Oh, I've got techniques, mate.
Depending on...
I have techniques. You just watch yourself,
Good.
mate. But in this case, basically he'd always come out to check. And what we actually ended up doing was eventually we said to him, mate, look, we're not going to check anymore. You know how to do this. We've shown you plenty of times. So what's going to happen is we'll just leave you to it. And when you think you're done, you pull your pants up and you walk out. And then obviously tests you, comes out and he says, hey, Dad, I think I'm done. Can you check? And I said, nah. And just carried on with what I was doing. And he goes, well, what if I'm not finished? And I go, well, then you better keep wiping. And he goes, but what if I don't know I'm finished and I pull my pants up and I get poo in my undies? And I said, then you get poo in your undies. And he goes, oh. And I'm like, do you think you're finished? He's like, oh, I might keep wiping. And so I did that a couple of times, literally 1 or 2 times. And then he's nailed it now. And really, I think this is very, very similar to how your staff act when they're calling you for help. A lot of the time, they're not actually needing your help. They're just wanting it. Basically, what I feel like here is it's actually a bit of a transference of responsibility more than anything else. Yep. It's not that they don't know what to do. It's not that they don't know how to do it. It's that they want to check with you so that if they miss anything, it's your fault, not theirs. So it absolves them of that responsibility. And I think, you're probably, if you're having a similar situation, getting heaps of phone calls from your staff or finding you need to go and check for them or wipe their butt, that you're probably losing a lot of precious time, efficiency, and headspace by doing that. And so you might actually just need to begin taking responsibility and initiative, well, they need to, just like George. And hey, look, sometimes they might get poo in their undies metaphorically, but that's actually part of the learning process. So they need to start taking that responsibility, and you need to stop being there as the backstop. That's the only way they'll do it. And
there's a concept here that I think is kind of useful. It's called learned helplessness.
That's the one.
So people kind of, they just learn to be helpless. And we, as the business owner, can actually aid and abet that helplessness by creating a situation where we let them be helpless, and we do basically metaphorically keep wiping bums and answering questions, which
that's it. And I mean, it's learned helplessness, but you taught it to them.
That's right.
That's how they learned it.
Yeah.
And so the only way they'll learn something else is if you teach that to them.
Yeah. Most people actually thrive on having responsibility, and it allows them to grow, and they love that independence, which is cool. And you're like, wow, these guys are actually pretty darn good. Wow.
Yeah.
And that's an experience people get when they start to have people take initiative.
That's right.
Skill level goes up, and you can grow your business because you're starting to create some capacity. People can do stuff on their own, which is the whole point of being a business and having a team.
Yeah, well, you start looking at each addition to your team as something that's going to help you and make things better, rather than each addition of your team as another bum to wipe. And actually, that just feels painful. So, yeah, it really gets you excited about the growth. Yeah, well,
solutions. Yeah,
let's talk about the 1-3-1 technique.
Yeah. The 1-3-1 technique is a cool technique that you can use to push the responsibility for problem solving back to your team. And this is not something that we've invented. It comes from the 1 Minute Manager.
Yep.
Ken Blanchard is well-known author. Writes some really simple books. They took like an hour to read. They're not big. But the 1-3-1 technique is really simple. Your team, rather than asking you what they should do, they need to come to you with one problem. So they need to be able to describe the problem. They need to come with 3 suggestions and 1 recommendation.
That's it.
So 1 problem, 3 suggestions, and 1 recommendation.
Yeah, that's it. So it's really, really important that they get this. And obviously the recommendation comes as one of their suggestions, just to make that super clear. As they have got their 1 problem, their 3 suggestions, and one of those is the one they recommend. And if you can get them into this mindset where they approach, talking to you with problems, they approach it this way, it means they've already done all the pre-thinking. And the other thing is, they're pretty confident, because a lot of the time when you get questions from your staff, they kind of know what they want to do. It's more of a permission call than anything else. And so this helps them realize that that's what they're doing, which is actually quite important, because that's what they're doing, but they might genuinely think they need your help here. So when they have to come to it this way, it helps them to realize as well what's really going on.
It's killer. So 1 problem, 3 suggestions, and 1 recommendation.
When you first start doing this, you ask for their suggestions, their recommendation. They might say, "Oh, I genuinely don't know. I don't know. And you just say, "Well, hey, what do you think? What do you think?" And they'll be like, "Well, I don't know." You say, "Well, hey, look, just top of your head, what do you think?" "Oh, well, I could do X, Y, Z," and often it's actually right. The big thing is that they might just really try to push that helplessness that they've learned, just try to really project that out. So you might have to dig a little bit to get them to do this. So but what do you think is a really easy line that you can use, just to make sure that they actually do follow this process. And if you can get them to do this, it really allows you to make what we call the 6-inch putt. So what that's all about is, if you actually do have to have any input, what you want it to be is the metaphorical 6-inch putt. So if you think about golf, any problem is the entire hole, and you don't want to be teeing off. You don't want to be playing approach shots, hitting out of the sand. That's definitely not what you want to be doing.
No, we don't.
You don't want to be doing any of that. For you, if I'm going to be involved, it's to make that 6-inch putt at the end. The team needs to do the legwork up until there. So in this case with the 1-3-1, they come with a problem, 3 suggestions, and a recommendation, and your 6-inch putt is, good idea. And I think for me, there's a real big part to this is, like, if you want this to stick, I think you really just have to look at how you actually back this up within your values.
100%.
And I think about that whole thing of, different core values that people have in their business. And you may have core values already, or you may not. You may call them standards. You might call them anything you want. But a lot of people, I'll see that they'll have a core value of something around like quality or perfection on the job, top quality workmanship, whatever it is. The hard thing is, if that's one of your values and you really push that, but you also really want them to take initiative, that can actually be kind of conflicting. Because if I'm one of the staff and I'm sitting there on a job a little bit stuck, and I know that my boss is going to be really angry if I don't get this perfect, then that's going to cause me to want to call, make sure, definitely get this right. So at the same time, if you want them to take initiative and not make the call, then you have to risk sometimes it may not be perfect. So you kind of need to make a choice, right? You obviously want the highest possible quality, but if initiative is more important to you, then you need to reinforce that, which means that if they make a mistake, you can't bollock them straight away. The first thing you actually have to do is congratulate them for taking initiative, which is hard because you'll be mad about the mistake, right? But it's really, 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 really important, because otherwise, if are you going to be more angry about 1 or 2 mistakes here and there, but heaps of initiative, or more angry about every job's perfect, but I had to finish every single one of them and take 100 phone calls a day? Like, you can't always have it both ways.
Perfection is the enemy of progress.
100%.
And excellence is what you want. And excellence is like a 85 to 95%.
That's it. And again, I'm not saying you sacrifice quality, but I'm saying maybe if you aim for excellence instead of perfection, you'll get more initiative. And again, if you're worried about the team making mistakes, I'm like, just take a quick look in the mirror and ask yourself, hey, do I ever make mistakes? And I'm sure you do. Look, everybody does. And so actually now and then, it's good. The guys might make a mistake, and that's just got to be okay as long as it's in service.
This is important because now that you own the business and you're the leader, your mistakes are different. And one of your big mistakes, maybe not letting people take initiative.
That's right. So and again, like, you might make mistakes with this, where you come down hard on someone for their mistake.
That's okay.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, man. If somebody has a huge problem, you might jump in from time to time, but I think the big thing is that more you can value initiative over perfection, you'll still get excellence. You'll just also get your sanity back.
100%. Love that. I think that's a good place to land this plane.
Let's land this plane.
So, developing competent and confident staff who can take initiative is tricky, but it 100% can be done. And it's all about putting the effort to develop the problem solving of your team. Help push the responsibility for making the jobs and the decisions back to them, and that's going to help them grow and work independently. And so that's the 1-3-1 technique, where we give them, we ask them to give us one problem, 3 suggestions, and then 1 solution. Do that. Watch your team just switch their brains on and become exceptional.